make way before the King of Kings. Our God is strong to save, is He to set the captives free. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles. Every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chain. Every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Every knee will bow before Him. Oh, who can stop the Lord? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? Tell me, who can stop the Lord? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? Oh, who can stop the Lord? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles. And every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chain. And every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Every knee will bow before Him. Oh, 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 oh. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to You only. You give life, you give life, you give life. You are love, you are love. You bring light to the darkness. You give hope, you give hope. You restore every heart that is broken. And great are You, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to You only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing it out. Great. Shout your praise, our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise, it's your breath in our lungs. Father, only you deserve praise this morning. Father, as we literally worship you, making sound with these vocal cords, with this breath that you have given us, we respond to you in worship. We respond to you as being the bride of Jesus today in worship. Father, I ask that we would make a sound literally and we would make a sound spiritually in this area of Broomfield that would declare you as God. And your word says that if you're lifted up, you would draw. Father, I ask that you would draw men and women to you in this area because you loved us first, Lord. We are your children, fully known and fully loved, Lord. But we know that for God so loved the world that he gave. Father, thank you for giving to us first. Thank you for loving us first. We continue to worship you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning, everybody. Please go ahead and have a seat. If we haven't met, my name is Matthew. I'm the lead pastor for Good News Church, and I wanted to say good morning to everybody, and especially those of you who are watching at home. Maybe you're on the couch, maybe you're out on the front patio, or maybe you won't get to this till a little later in the week. I just want you to know that we appreciate you making time, not just to be together, because when we're together, we're the church, but also to make time to be with God. We're in this kind of weird time, right, where COVID's going on and all of our normal stuff doesn't work quite right. And it's just the reality of where we are. And rather than fight against it, we just need to live with it, right? And people keep asking me, Pastor Matthew, with church not happening in services like normal and everybody kind of doing their own thing and things are just kind of weird, people keep asking me, people who care much about Good News Church, people keep asking me, Pastor, are we okay financially? Is the church going to make it financially? And I just want to put everybody's heart to rest. Yes, we are. We're doing really well because you guys are gracious and generous. And so all of the needs of the church are being met by your very generous gifts. And so I want to say thank you. I also want to point out that none of us give just so that we can pay the bills. None of us give just so that we can make sure that the power stays on and that we make the payments that are due and that kind of stuff. We give because we say, whether it's in the middle of COVID or whether it's normal times, we give because we say, God, I trust you. I trust you to take care of me. I entrust myself to you. And that really is the way I always look at the offering. When I'm giving those gifts to God, I'm saying, God, I love you. I know I can try and take care of myself with the cash that I have, but God, I'm giving you this gift because I want you to know I love you, God, and that I trust you to take care of me. God, you take care of me better than I can take care of myself. And so I want to encourage you, continue giving out of that heart, not to meet the bills, but out of saying, God, I love you, I put you first, I trust you to take care of me. And I just also want to say to those of you who are concerned for the sake of the church, yes, God is being very generous through each one of you to meet all the needs of the church, and so thank you. Thank you so much. I want to pray for the offering, and then from there we're gonna move into the message. You can give. Yeah, we're not gonna pass a basket as we're outside. It's the middle of COVID, all that kind of stuff. So you can give on your app. You can give through the church's website. We have a box over there this morning. You can drop a gift in, or you could, if you're at home, you can mail it in. Whatever works for you is good. But I want to say thank you for the way you guys are so generous. It makes it possible for us to be the church even in the middle of COVID. The Good News Church exists to be and to make disciples of Jesus Christ, Jesus followers who love God, love others, and serve the world. So thank you. Let me pray. God, we thank you for this morning. It is beautiful. The birds are singing, and it is just gorgeous out, and we tell you thanks. We tell you thanks for the air we breathe like we sang. We tell you thanks for the beautiful day. We tell you thanks for yesterday and the birthday party for America and the fireworks that went on all night long. And we tell you thank you for the way you provide for us. As individuals and as a church, we thank you that we get to be the church, your bride that you love. We thank you that we get to follow you, Jesus, and put you first. And so this morning, we want to give you these gifts, God, not because we have to, because there are bills to be paid. We want to give you these gifts because we love you. And we entrust ourselves to you, knowing that you will take care of us far better than we could ever take care of ourselves. We entrust ourselves to you. And so as an act of love this morning, God, we give you these gifts. It's in Jesus' name we pray, and everybody said, amen. Amen. Well, as we get started this morning, I have a question for you. And you got to play along, because when I ask a question and you don't play along, it's no fun at all. Has anybody here ever been to Providence, Rhode Island? Raise your hand if you've ever been to Providence, Rhode Island. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay, 8, 9. 9, there we go. Yeah, I've never been there. I've never been to Providence, Rhode Island. I've been all across the United States. I've been to a lot of places, but I've never been to Providence, Rhode Island. But there's something about that city that intrigues me. The name of the city, Providence, means we don't believe in luck. Providence means I don't believe in luck. I don't believe in good luck. I don't believe in bad luck. I don't believe in dumb luck. Providence means I believe that God will provide for me. I believe that God is watching me. He's paying attention to everything that's going on in my life. And I believe that he's working and acting and doing something, working towards his good plan. So Providence, Rhode Island, the name of the city is We Don't Believe in Luck. I think that's really interesting. I think that's really kind of a strange name for a city, but I think it's perfect for what we're talking about today. We're in this message series that we're calling The Art of Contentment. And we're talking about what does it take to be content right now. Knowing that the world is a little odd, knowing that the world is upside down, knowing that we've got a pandemic going on, and we've got COVID, right? And we've got racial tensions, and we also have this looming economic crisis that's kind of over everything. Our question is, what would it take to be content right now? Not someday once all this blows over, not someday once things get better, but what would it take to be content right now in the middle of everything that's going on? And in your e-bulletin this morning, in your church app, we have a definition for contentment that we're working off of. Contentment is an inward, gracious, quiet spirit that joyfully rests in God's providence. And so in week 1, we said that contentment is not based on changing external circumstances, but contentment is based on internal truth. Week number 2, we said that contentment can be ours if we'll have an attitude of gratitude. So last week we said contentment can be ours if we'll have an attitude of gratitude. And today for week 3, we're going to be learning that in order to be content, we have to abandon the idea of luck. We got to throw away our lucky horseshoes. We got to throw away our lucky rabbit's foot. We got to get rid of luck. No more good luck, no more bad luck. Instead, we are going to rest in God's providence. We're going to believe that God is actively working in the world, that he sees what's going on. He's actively working and he's providing what we need. He's actively working in the whole world, and he's actively working in my world personally and in your world personally. And so I want to start this morning by telling you a story. It's a story that you might know. It's about a guy named Joseph. And so maybe you've read the story in the Bible, and it's in Genesis chapters 37 through really the end of Genesis. Genesis is the first book of the Bible, and it's a long story. Maybe you've never read the Bible. That's okay. Maybe you saw the musical, right? Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. Anybody see that musical? Anybody? Okay, a couple of you. Yeah. Okay, more of you have seen the play than have gone to Providence, Rhode Island. Okay, fair enough. So maybe you know the story, but it's a really long story, and I don't have time to read the whole thing to you, so let me give you the Cliff Notes. There was a guy named Joseph, and he was born into a family with at least 13 kids. That's a big family. And Joseph was one of the youngest in the family. But Joseph was Dad's favorite, and everybody else in the family knew that Joseph was Dad's favorite. Well, one day, Dad took this beautiful coat that was made up of many colors. It was just gorgeous, and he gives this beautiful coat to his favorite son. And we might look at that and we might say, oh, he's a lucky guy. But Joseph takes his coat and he puts it on, and it makes the rest of his brothers and sisters jealous. It creates tension in the family. Everybody knows that Joseph is Daddy's boy, and the rest of the brothers can't handle it anymore. And then to make matters worse, one day Joseph gets up in the morning, comes out of his room, and he says, hey everybody, I had a dream. In my dream last night, you all bowed down and worshipped me. You all bowed down in front of me. And the older brother's like, I don't think so. Who are you, you little punk? And so, one day, Joseph, the little brother, and all the big brothers, they're out working they're out away from the house, and they decide they're done with Joseph. Daddy's little boy, he's the favorite. They're jealous, and he's got these dreams of, we're all going to bow down to him. I don't think so. And so they take him and they sell him into slavery. They get rid of him. You might think things are bad in your family, but if they haven't sold you as a slave yet, you must be doing pretty well, right? Yeah. And so he gets sold off to be a slave. The brothers go home with a ripped up jacket and they say, oh, he's dead. He got eaten by wild animals. And so we look at Joseph and we say, oh, that's bad luck. That's horrible. A slave? And so Joseph gets sold into slavery in Egypt. And he's bought like property. Like you go to Walmart and buy something, he's purchased. This is wrong. He's purchased by a man named Potiphar. And Potiphar has a big house, and Joseph starts working for him. And Potiphar realizes Joseph has a lot of ability as a manager. And so he kind of brings Joseph up, and pretty soon Joseph is in charge of the entire house, all of Potiphar's house. And so Joseph is managing Potiphar's house. And one day Joseph's wife comes to him, and she's just a lush, and she says, man, you're cute. She says, you come to bed with me. And he says, no, I don't think so. I'm in charge of everything else except you. And she says, no, you come to bed with me. And so he runs, he leaves, he flees, he runs away. And she's mad because she's been turned down. And so she screams, and people come running. And she says, that slave boy tried to rape me. Can you believe it? And so he's arrested, and he's thrown into prison. And we would say that's horrible luck. And so Joseph ends up in prison for years. And in prison, he does kind of what he did in Potiphar's house. He's got some management skills, and so he starts managing the prison and the stuff going on inside the prison. And the prison guard likes this. He's like, yeah, I can entrust Joseph to take care of everything. That's cool. But let's be honest. Being in charge of being inside the prison, that's bad luck, we'd say. That's not a good gig. Time goes on, and the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, has this weird dream. And he begins asking everybody, what does my dream mean? What does my dream mean? What does my dream mean? And nobody knows what his dream means. It's an odd dream. But word gets around that Joseph understands dreams, that Joseph has special dreams and he understands them. And so Pharaoh says, bring him here to me. And so Joseph goes to see the king of Egypt. And we say, hey, that's good luck. And he goes before the king of Egypt, the Pharaoh. And Pharaoh tells him his dream, and it's a weird dream. And Joseph says, I know what that dream means. That dream means that Egypt is going to have 7 years that are just beautiful. They're going to be awesome. There's going to be more food than we need. It's going to be party every day. We're going to have far more than we need. And then we're going to have 7 years of famine where there's no food, where people are going to die if we don't do something. And so the king of Egypt, the Pharaoh, says, I like you, son. You come work for me. And Joseph goes to work for the Pharaoh in the palace, doing what he's been taught and learned to do. He begins managing. He works for the Pharaoh, and he manages all of Egypt to begin putting away food. During the 7 good years, he puts away food for the 7 bad years that are to come. And so now he's gone from the prison to the palace. And we would say, that's good luck. He's got this great job. How did this happen? And so he's working in the palace, and he's putting away food for those bad days that are to come. And then the bad days come. But it's okay, because Egypt has far more food than they need. In fact, they have so much food. Joseph has done such a good job that they have so much food that people from other countries are coming to ask for food, to beg for food, because this famine is widespread. And Joseph has done a great job, and one day Joseph is sitting in his throne. He's the second in charge of all of Egypt. And I want you to picture him for just a second. He's not the little boy anymore. Some 30 years have passed. He's a man. And I want you to picture him. His head is shaved like he's an Egyptian, and he's got on a headdress, and he's got on the Egyptian jewelry and the robe and everything else. And one day his brothers walk into the throne room, and they don't recognize him. Joseph's brothers, who sold him into slavery, walk into the room. He recognizes them instantly, and they don't recognize him. And they come into the throne room and they bow down before Joseph. They get down on their knees, just like that dream. And they begin to plead for food. Please, could you give us food? Our father has 13 kids, well, 12 now. But we're starving. Our father is starving, and we're starving, and our people are starving. Could you please give us food? And so here is Joseph, his dream come true, his brothers are bowing before him, and here's his chance to get back at them, to get revenge on them for what they did to him. They sold him into slavery. We'd say, that's good luck. How did this happen? This is great luck. But Joseph's heart breaks for his brothers, and he longs to see his dad. And so eventually he takes off the makeup and he takes off the headdress, and he reveals who he is. It's me, it's Joseph. I can't believe you're here. This is such, we would say, good luck. His heart breaks for his brothers, and he begins to forgive them. And he abandons the idea of getting revenge. And instead, he begins to talk to them and say, yeah, I'll give you food. Yeah, you're saved. And we would say, for the brothers, this is good luck. And then Joseph says this. Joseph says, I don't believe in luck. I don't believe in luck. I don't believe in fate. Instead, Joseph says this to his brothers. In Genesis 50, verse 20, he says, you planned evil against me. You sold me into slavery. But God planned it for good to bring about this present result. See, when we say good luck or bad luck or dumb luck, we have no idea what we're talking about. When we see a little snippet, we see a little story, a little something happens in your life or in my life, we say that's good luck or that's bad luck. We have no idea what we're talking about. Because what are we doing? We're looking at this little snippet, this little tiny thing, and it's part of something much bigger that often we don't understand. I mean, we just went through 30-some years of Joseph's life very quickly. And in each little part, we can say, good luck, bad luck, good luck, bad luck, good luck, bad luck. But no, God is doing something bigger here. And in your life, God is doing something bigger here too. Luck has nothing to do with any of it. Luck is bad theology. Luck is horrible theology. Luck says that stuff just happens. Luck says that no one can control anything. It just kind of happens, and God has no control over anything. The concept of good luck or bad luck, the concept of luck actually goes against God. It says, God, either you don't exist or you don't matter. Luck says, God, you're impudent. You can't do anything. You're just watching. And the world is out of control. Luck is bad theology. But it's really clear from Joseph's story, God really is in control. God really does have a big plan. God really does have a good plan that he's working towards. God's got a big plan in the world, and God's got a big plan in your life. God's got a good plan in the world that he's working towards. And hear this, God has a good plan in your life that he's working towards too. You may just be seeing a snippet of it right now, In the middle of corona, in the middle of racial tensions, in the middle of an economic financial crisis looming over us. And we would say bad luck, but that's just a little snippet. No, it's not luck. God is working out something really big. God is working through the natural laws and the free will in people's lives, and he's working towards something. And so we can stop saying it's good luck or bad luck. What we need to say, it's providence. Everybody say providence. Providence, yeah. God's working his providence out. When we're in a bad spot, when bad things are going on, and we recognize God's providence, we recognize that God is still in control, and that he's working towards his good plan, then we can really rest in him and we can have contentment. We can rest in his providence when we realize, God, you're doing something big, and I don't see it all, and I don't understand it all, but I believe that you're still in control. Then we can rest in his providence. We can have contentment despite the circumstances. And so what I want to do this morning is, out of Joseph's story, I want to follow up with 4 reasons why we can be content in and rest in God's providence. Here's number 1. We can rest in God's providence because, number 1, God who made everything is now sustaining it. And so hopefully you're taking notes in your bulletin. Hopefully you've got the e-bulletin open and you're in your app. Number 1, God who made everything is now sustaining it. God didn't create everything and then walk away and over his shoulder yell, "Hey, good luck, I hope it works out for you." Not at all. God who created everything continues to be involved in everything. He's fully involved in every day, in every life, and in everything. In fact, everything would have fallen apart if God had walked away and wasn't paying attention. Hebrews 1 verse 3 says, the Son, and it's talking about Jesus, S-O-N, the Son, Jesus is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being. So what that's saying is Jesus is God himself. So Jesus, who made everything, is also sustaining all things by his powerful word. Oxygen works because Jesus made it and he makes it work. Gravity works because Jesus created it and he sustains it. He keeps it working. Our eyes can see all the beauty of color and everything else because he made our eyes. And he made all the complicated systems that make them work. God created everything. That's by Jesus' word, by his ongoing involvement in everything, that everything is sustained, that everything keeps working. We think of these things like oxygen and gravity and color and our eyes working. We think of these things as natural laws. These are the laws that rule in our world. These are the laws that our bodies work by. And they really do exist. These are the laws that Jesus created, the natural laws God created, and he made them and he sustains them. We can't imagine life without the laws of nature, but the natural laws work because Jesus made them and continues to pay attention to them. Scientists are always telling us, our world wouldn't work if. Our world wouldn't work if our planet was just a few degrees off kilter. And our world wouldn't work if we were just a few miles further away from the sun. We'd be too cold. And our world wouldn't work if the elements in our atmosphere were different. Just the list goes on and on. The scientists are absolutely right. All these things wouldn't work if they were different. Life on our planet would stop. But it's by God's providence. He's involved in it. He provides for it. He's watching it and he's got it under control. Jesus is sustaining all things, and that's why it continues to work. He pays attention to the natural laws, and in the same way he pays attention to your world and your life. He pays attention and sustains everything. That everything included Joseph's life and all the details of his life, and that everything includes your life and all the details of your life too. So number 1, we can rest in God's providence because number 1, God who made everything is still sustaining it. Number 2, we can rest in God's providence because God is working everything according to his good plan. He's making everything work towards his good plan. The reality is, things will happen in your life that you don't like. They'll happen, you'll say, that's not good, that's not good, that's not good, I don't like that, that's horrible, that's wretched. And we'll look around and we'll say, I don't like everything, and that's just the reality. And the same was true for Joseph. Joseph didn't like being sold into slavery. That was horrible. Joseph didn't like being property. Joseph didn't like being in prison. You know, bad things do happen. But God used all those things to reach his purpose in Joseph's life. Romans 8:28 says, we know that in all things, in good things and in bad things, we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. To say it another way, God is able to use all the horrible things in our life to make beautiful things grow. God is able to make beautiful things grow. God is able to orchestrate beautiful things to grow out of the horrible things that happen in our lives. Out of the bad, the hard, and the horrible situations. They will happen in our lives. But God is able to use them, manipulate them, orchestrate them to lead towards his good plans. The bad things in life that happen to us, whether we initiated them, whether we made them bad, and I've got those, or whether there's bad things that happened to me that I had no control over, I've got those too. God is still able to use those to orchestrate his plan, to lead towards his plan, to make good things, beautiful things grow, to work towards his good plan. God used all the bad situations in Joseph's life to eventually provide for Joseph and his family. And not just provide some food, although that was good. Joseph's family was starving to death. But God also used all these difficult things in Joseph's life to answer a promise, to provide for a promise that God made to Joseph's great-great-great-grandfather, Abraham. God promised Abraham. Abraham was a man who was nearly 100. He had no kids, and God had kept promising, I'm going to make your people a great nation. You're going to have so many kids you won't be able to count them. They'll be like stars in the sky. They'll be like the sand on the shore. You won't be able to count how many kids you have. And Abraham looked around and said, I don't have any kids. I just need one, God. Come on. And God said, no, I promise. I'm going to make you not into just a great nation, but in fact, I'm going to bless the entire world through you. I mean, that's a big promise. That's a big plan. That's a good plan. And so Abraham had a son named Isaac. And Isaac had a son. And we follow that down to Joseph and his 13 siblings, the 13 of them, 12 brothers. And they have no food, and they're all going to die, and the promise is going to end. And God says, no, I got this. I'll take care of you. And he moves them from a place that has no food, no nothing. He moves them into Egypt where they thrive, and 12 brothers become 12 clans, and the 12 clans, in fact, become numerous people in Egypt. They just thrive in Egypt. They multiply. In fact, to the point where the Egyptians become afraid that the Israelites are going to be more than the Egyptians. And they do. The population of the Egyptians actually goes down, and the population of the Israelites go up, and then that's a whole nother story for the next chapter of the Bible in Exodus. See, there were horrible things in Joseph's life that led to God's good and perfect plan. God was working on something big. We look at little things and we say, that's good luck, that's bad luck, and God says, no, this is my providence. I'm working on a big story, and I'm working on something good, and I'm working on something beautiful. In fact, it was from those 12 tribes of Israel that eventually Jesus came and was a blessing to everybody. When Jesus sacrificed himself on the cross, he paid the price for your sins and mine, and he came from the 12 tribes of Israel, one of Jacob's family descendants. Man, it was a good story. And so, the question for you this morning, God is working out a good plan. The question for you this morning is, what's the hard thing that's going on in your life right now? What is that horrible thing, that difficult thing? What is the hardest thing in your life right now? I'm not going to ask you to tell anybody, but think about it honestly. What is that hard, horrible thing that's going on in your life right now? You would say, oh, this is bad luck. This is horrible. Maybe it's something you instigated. Maybe you're at fault for it, or maybe it's something that was done to you. But you would say, this is the bad thing. This is the hard thing. This is the difficult thing. Whatever that thing is, God can use it. He can use that bad and horrible thing to work out his good plan in your life. And so this is what I do when I've got a horrible, hard, difficult thing. I go to God and I say to God, I pray to God, God, this thing is hard. This thing is horrible. I don't like this thing. And God, the truth is, I want away from this thing as quick as possible. But God, I fully believe you can use this thing in my life for your good plan. God, I don't see how you're going to do it. It seems impossible to me. But God, I've seen you do it before. I've seen you do it in other people's lives. I've seen you do it in my life. And I trust you, God. I believe you're going to do it again now in my life. And so we pray by faith and believe, God, you're doing something bigger here. I don't understand it all. But God, I trust you. I trust your providence. That's a statement of faith. That's a statement of trust. That's a statement of belief. When we believe that God is working everything according to his good plan, we can pray, God, I know you got this. I'm content in you. Everything's not perfect. All the circumstances aren't perfect, but I'm content. I can rest in your providence. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do, God. Okay, so we can rest in God's providence because, number one, God who made everything is now sustaining it. Number two, God is working everything according to his good plan. And number three, God usually uses indirect methods, but can act directly when needed. God usually uses indirect methods. In Joseph's story, God moved in some amazing ways. God arranged the deck. God worked through people. He shepherded people's free will, human will, and he also worked through natural laws. Everything came together beautifully. And God didn't work through a miracle. God worked through indirect methods. And by that, write this down in your notes this morning. And by indirect, I mean the laws of nature and human will. God shepherds through the laws of nature and human will towards his good plans. And that's usually how God works. Joseph was doing his thing, right? He had free will to do what he wanted. You have free will to do what you want. And Joseph's brothers had free will to do what they want. They didn't like Joseph, so they sold him into slavery, right? And so they sold him. Each were doing their own thing. And God worked through it. And I think it's amazing how God works. So often God works without doing anything supernatural. We would say that was normal. That was kind of boring. That was just everyday stuff. That was just you making your choice and me making my choice and natural law. That wasn't anything amazing. But the reality is that God is able to shepherd us by his providence. He's able to shepherd us towards his good plan. And that's normally how God works. When we look at the story, we don't see any big miracle that happened. I think the most unusual piece maybe would be Joseph in his dreams, right? But I think the most amazing part of the story is it just shows God's providence, how God is working through people's decisions and through natural law, and God still gets his way. God still gets to his good plan. But sometimes, every once in a while, God moves more directly. And when he does, we call that a miracle. When God moves directly, we call that a miracle. A miracle is something that breaks the laws of nature. A miracle is something when God doesn't work according to the laws of nature, but does his own thing. And so there are some crazy stories in the Bible where we say, you know what? That doesn't fit the rules of this world that I understand and know. That's a little bit different. That's not normal. I think of Moses. Moses is leading the nation of Israel out of Egypt. They're fleeing from Egypt. So Joseph is a story of Israel going into Egypt. Moses is the story of Israel leaving Egypt as a huge nation. And as they're leaving Egypt, the Pharaoh says, you're not leaving. I'm coming to get you. And if I can't take you back as slaves, I'm going to kill you. And so God does something amazing. He breaks the laws of nature and he splits the ocean, he splits the sea, and the people walk through the middle of it. That's a miracle. I think of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, one of my favorite stories out of the Old Testament. And these three guys say to the king, King, you want us to bow down to you instead of God? No, God comes first. You can be second, king, but you can't be first. And he says, well, if you're not going to let me be first, the king says, if you're not going to let me be first, I'm throwing you in the fire. I don't want anybody like you. And so he picks him up and they throw him in the fire. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego go into this fire, but they don't burn up. They don't die. That's wrong. That doesn't fit the laws of nature, right? They come back out and not a single hair on their head is even singed. They don't even smell like smoke. bunch of you still smell like smoke because last night you were barbecuing and you were setting on the city on fire with all those fireworks, right? Pow, 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 pow. And you still smell like smoke. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they come out of the fire. They don't even smell like smoke. That's a miracle. I think of Jonah. Jonah gets going in the wrong direction. He's supposed to go that way. Instead, he goes that way. And he gets on a ship, and he gets out in the ocean, and there's a huge storm, and he gets thrown overboard, and he falls in the water, and you're sure he's going to drown. In fact, if you read the story, it might actually say he does, but that's a story for another day. But he gets swallowed by a giant fish, and he's inside the belly of a fish for 3 days, and the fish pukes him out in the right place, where he was supposed to go. That's not right. That doesn't fit the natural laws. That's what we call a miracle. Or how about the time when Peter was preaching? And Peter, sometimes you guys think I preach too long. Peter was preaching one night and it went into the night. It went on for hours and hours and hours and hours. And maybe you get tired and sleepy when I'm preaching. I get that. Well, there was one guy, he's sitting in the window of this house. Peter's inside this house and there's all these people in this house and he's preaching. He's talking about God. And one guy's sitting in the windowsill and he's listening and he nods off. He falls asleep because we won't say anything about Peter's preaching. But then this guy falls asleep and he falls out the window, second story, lands on his head and dies. And everybody's crying. This is horrible. And Peter runs out and he begins to pray for the guy. And the guy gets up. That's a miracle. And then they go back inside and Peter starts preaching again. Or how about Paul and Silas? Paul and Silas have been telling people about Jesus. And they tick some people off. And so Paul and Silas get arrested and they get thrown in prison. And in the middle of the night, there's a giant earthquake. And the earthquake doesn't just shake the building, doesn't just shake the prison. It actually shakes the prison in just the perfect way that the building doesn't fall apart, but all of the cells open and their shackles fall off. This is what we call a miracle. See, there are some times when God works in a way that breaks the laws of nature, and those are the things, sometimes God chooses to work in a miracle. And the reality is yes, God still does miracles. Yes, he can still do miracles whenever he wants. And yes, he does continue to do miracles today. But it seems that he only works that way. He only works in miracles when it fits his good plan. He doesn't do miracles to entertain us. He doesn't do miracles to impress us. He doesn't do miracles to show off or appease us. Hey, you want to see me do a neat trick? I mean, that's not the way God works. He only does a miracle when it fits his good plan that he's working towards. So yes, in God's providence, he can do miracles, but more often than not, he tends to work through people's free will and natural law. But either way, miracles or natural law and human will, either way, God is actively working in the world and in our lives. Here's the last one, number 4. We can rest in God's providence because, number 4, God will never cause me to sin. I can trust him. He's never going to cause me to do anything wrong. There's never going to be a time when God says, to get to my plan, to get to what I want to do, you're going to have to do wrong. God doesn't cut corners to get to his goals. I've got a buddy, and his wife came to him one day and said, you know what, I've met somebody else. And it's God's plan for me that I leave you and I get married to him. No, that's not God's plan. You made a promise to him that you'll stay with him. Leaving him is wrong. God's not going to tell you to do wrong. That's not God telling you. That's lust telling you. But she left. But God will never ask you. God will never tell you. God will never cause you to do wrong, to do sin. In James 1, verses 13 and 14, it says, when tempted to do wrong, when tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me, that God is causing me, that God is making me do something wrong, that this is God's will for me to do something. Never. When tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he ever tempt anyone else. God will never ask us to do wrong. He'll never tell us to sin. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. Remember last week we talked about how good he is. He only does good. He will never not do good. God is good. He does good. And when in his plan, he asks for you and me to do good too. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each Each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desires and enticed. So let's go back to Joseph's story. Remember Joseph's brothers who got fed up with Joseph and they sold him into slavery? That was wrong. But let's be really clear. God did not make them do that. God did not tell them to do that. God did not cause them to do wrong. They did that on their own. And despite their sin, God was still able to reach his good plan. God was able to orchestrate everything for his good plan, even when someone did wrong. Remember Potiphar's wife? Remember Potiphar's wife was the lusty one who said, hey, come to bed with me. And when he won, she had him framed for rape. And so he ends up in prison. To be clear, God did not make her do wrong. God did not cause her to do sin. God did not cause her to do that. She did that of her own free will. And despite her sin, God was still able to orchestrate things for his good plan. My buddy, whose wife left him, she came home and she said, you know what, God's got another plan for me. I'm going to leave you and I'm going to go marry this other guy instead. Let's be really clear. God did not tell her to do that. God did not cause her to sin, to do wrong. She did that of her own free will. And despite her sin, God was able to orchestrate everything for his good plan in my friend's life. See, my buddy eventually met another woman. And they fell in love, and they got married, and they've got a couple of kids now, and he is happily married. In fact, can I just say, I don't know if he's watching right now, but he got an upgrade. The new wife is 10 times better than the old wife. I probably shouldn't say things like that, right? I'm sorry. Okay, so anyways. But he's not just happy. He's in a great place in life. And God's plan for his life was not messed up by her sin. God is able to orchestrate good things by his providence. God is able to work all things for good for those who love him and called according to his good purpose. And so I think if Joseph was here with us today, I think Joseph would tell us, forget about luck, forget about fate, forget about chance. We don't need a pockets full of rabbit's feet. We don't need a lucky horseshoe or any other good luck charm. What we need to do is rest in the truth that God is actively working in our world and in our lives. And we need to rest in God's providence. And his providence leads to contentment. The kind of contentment we can have right now, today, in the middle of these circumstances. I want to pray for you. God, I pray for my friends. I pray for our church. I pray that we would know your contentment as we rest in your providence. We really do believe that you have everything under control. We really do believe that things aren't left up to fate and hope and luck as if it was out of everybody's control. God, I fully recognize my fate is not in my control at all, but it's in yours. And God, I thank you. I praise you that you are in control. And not just in control of the world, but you're in control of my world personally. And so, God, I look forward to seeing what you will do with the hard things that are going on in my life right now. Folks, I want to encourage you right now in the quietness of your heart, you pray and talk to God too. Tell him whatever that thing is that you thought of earlier, that thing that's hard, that thing that's difficult, that thing that hurts. What is it? Tell God about it. And know you didn't ask for it, and you may not have even caused it, or maybe you did. But right now, place it in God's hands and say, God, I believe by your providence, you are still working towards your good plan. God's good plan is for you to know him, to trust him, for his love to be so evident in your life that it overflows out of your life into the lives of other people around you. God's plan is for his kingdom to grow through you. His goal is for others to come to know him through you. For you to be in awe and amazed and in love with God and his glory, that you can't help but tell other people about it, that people can't help but pick up about it. So right now, pray, God, I don't know how you're going to use this, but I can't wait to see what you'll do. Right now, brag on God. God, I've seen you be faithful in the past. Maybe he's been faithful to you. I've seen you, God, be faithful to other people. And maybe you know no other stories but Joseph's story. God, I've seen you faithful to Joseph. I believe that you can work towards your good plan right here in my life too. God, I really do believe that you are working all things together for the good of those who love you and are called according to your purpose. God, I do look forward to seeing how you work in each person's life. And God, I look forward to seeing how you'll work through the hard things that are going in my life right now too. So God, I entrust myself and my friends, this church to you, these people to you, and to your good plan, into your providence. We love you, God. It's in Jesus' name we pray. And everybody said, amen.
My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest free, but wholly trust in Jesus' name. When darkness seems to hide his face, I rest on his unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. My anchor holds within the veil. Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Through the storm, He is the Lord, Lord of all. When He shall come, He shall come with trumpet sound. Oh, may I then in Him be found, dressed in His righteousness alone, faultless stand before the throne. Sing it out. Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. The storm, He is Lord of all. Let's do that again. Christ alone. Sing Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Through the storm, He is Lord, Lord of all. One more time, the voices. Christ.
Savior's love, through the storm, He is Lord, Lord of all.
before you go, if you need prayer for anything at all, we'll have a handful of people over here by the sanctuary window. We would love to pray for you. If you need prayer, don't leave without being prayed for. Whether it has something to do with Providence or something else completely different in life, don't leave without being prayed for today. If you're watching online, you can ask for prayer through the church's app and also through the church's website. We would love to be praying for you for anything and everything. Next week, we'll be out here again, outside. This is not exactly what we planned, but we could say by God's providence, here we are, right? Yeah, we'll be here again next Sunday. God